I eat a delicious grape here.
Yeah.
And then
We're
you
doing
see
sound effects.
this project's going south down here.
Yeah.
And that's one of the critical aspects that you mentioned before.
Oh, yeah.
When you have negative projects that you bring in and the calculation is not right because you still don't see the full Monty of the project, then it goes further and further south. And my experience was that lots of these strategic projects that we took in actually went worse and worse.
But I'm gonna because this is such a beautiful thing that I saw in my interaction with Siemens. I mean, sometimes I was actually shocked when I looked at some of the projects because a lot of companies, to be quite honest, okay, a lot of companies have wishful thinking EBITs in their project, right? But what I always thought was great about Siemens is I always felt was, not always, but I would say in the majority of projects that I saw that had a negative EBIT with Siemens, I always felt that there was some kind of idea behind it. So I'm going to give you an example. If you have a large group of personnel, let's say you have to keep a staff of 5,000 programmers, and for some reason you're coming into a year where business is going back because there's a recession, right? One of the typical things that most companies do is they start firing people. And Siemens realized, well, if I fire people, my problem is, am I going to get them back? I'm losing knowledge, and when am I going to get these resources back when the economy goes up? I know that Siemens and sometimes strategically decided, well, listen, if we have, I'm just taking some number here. If you have 5,000 employees, I have a certain cost that I have to cover.
Yeah.
So if I take certain projects in where I'm not making my full margin, but I cover my costs, is that a strategic compensation from a portfolio perspective so that I can
Absolutely.
still, and it's a brilliant, it's what I lack in too many companies is the concept that the head of the organization, the brain of the organization is connected to the hands. Right?
I know what you mean, yeah.
So that the senior managers or executives don't just look at the superficial numbers and do what we call the buzzsaw, right? Mm-hmm. Revenue is going back, let's get rid of FTEs. And they say, no, listen, we've invested, we've developed these people. These are people that are of value, they have knowledge. And you say, okay, so there's creative ways to compensate. Another thing that Siemens was always famous for is particularly since they do a lot of research and development, they say, you know what? Sometimes we'll do a project below margin or with a negative EBIT because it's our entry, it's our foot in the door. If it's a new product, it's a reference. Sometimes, let's face it, let's be quite honest. Anybody who understands anything about product development understands that the first mover market is a nightmare. Nobody wants. 2% of the world population is brave enough to be a first mover, and quite honestly, first movers want a discount. And your number one way to sell a new product is not just because your product is good, it's because you have reference. You end the sales conversation if you can go into your client and they say, well, okay, what can you do? They listen to you with one ear, and then you say, yeah, but by the way, your competitors you just buy. All of a sudden, people are like, I need to order this product. Okay?
Yep.
And that's what I think was the beauty, and this is the actual thing that I think is the beauty of the concept that Siemens is not just committed to project management, which is menial execution of small targets. It understands that projects work together in programs. Sometimes your return on investment is not with the first project, it's with a follow-up project.
Yes, but you have, of course, at the end of the day, you have to prove that.
Yes.
And that's the difficult part, yeah? So it's not just talking from hearsay or believing everything that people tell you, sales-driven. You have to deliver at the end of the day. And the good thing is if you commit to a project with a negative result and you stay with this result, then you've achieved your goal. Yeah. Of course, there might be a target then to increase the goal a little bit, to improve a little bit. Yeah, fair enough. And that's what we at the end value. That's at the end what we honor, and that's how we work. So if 10 projects come and say we're strategic, and all of the 10 would lose, then of course
everybody says, if you have a negative EBIT, the standard bingo word, it's strategic.
It's strategic. Yes, and that's the critical part.